Welcome back to another episode of the South by East podcast, where we discuss the scriptures, music, and culture, and everything in between. And today in the intersection, we're discussing the recently new law in Louisiana that says that the Ten Commandments must be displayed in every public school classroom.
I got a one-letter sentence for you. Why? Why?
You know what? Here's the deal. So, where's that soapbox at? Okay, all right.
Okay. Here we go.
Because it's for the same reason that we keep hearing those tired tropes of the problems we're having is because they took prayer out of the school. No, I prayed all through school. I prayed at games. I prayed in the locker room. We prayed as a team. I even had teachers that said, if you want to pray before class start, you can have that. I just can't lead you in it.
Yep.
I was the vice president of FCA my junior and then the president of FCA my senior year. I mean, the scriptures were there. They were there. And so, man, we have left ourselves to believing some things that are just not true.
It's not true.
I heard somebody, I put out a post the other day trying to see if there was any interest in churches banding together to partner with local youth sports leagues so that we would send volunteers, we would help sponsor kids that couldn't afford it, and we would go be influencers, be coaches, be influences in secular places, and then our only agreement, we wouldn't try to force them to come to our church or anything else. We would just ask that they don't schedule games and practices on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
And somebody responded back with, several people like, well, they got upward. And I'm like, man, if I had a choice as a pastor, I would prefer you coach in a non-church league than a church league. And the reason is that I feel like one of the reasons, because people will say, well, they used to not schedule stuff on Wednesday night and on Sunday morning. And I sometimes I feel like, well, they used to not do it because you had more Christians who were involved in those venues, and then the church started pulling out, creating its own thing so much that we lost all of our influence in those spheres because we lost our presence in those spheres. And so when I look at stuff like this, posting stuff on the wall, the whole Old Testament shows you how people knew God's law and it made no difference. So just having the Ten Commandments on the wall is not going to stop that kid from cussing out that teacher. Also this, you know what? I don't want every public school teacher trying to teach my kids the scriptures, and here's why. Because I don't agree with the take that they have on the scriptures, and I don't even know if that teacher is a believer or not. So why would I want my kid getting their foundational beliefs on what we believe as our religion from somebody who doesn't believe or is maybe a cynic of it? And so I have no control over it in that thing. And I'm like, so I know it may make it easier for some folks, but it also may diminish the quality of it. And so that's something I would rather hold to me, to my wife, to our family, and to the church that we belong to, where I know where those kind of things are being cultured and have some kind of say into them. And so when I see things like this, I'm like, man, look, it's the same thing with the youth sports league, and I've seen it over and over again in so many spaces. I operate, Sent is non-religious. I operate in a lot of secular spaces, and here's what I've seen. And Brail knows that we have stories of this. I don't have to keep trying to coerce anybody to come and visit us. I don't have to force anybody's hand, and I hate the trope of the rice bowl Christian that see somebody hungry and say, okay, we're going to feed you this meal, but only after you come and attend this service. Or I'm going to give you this thing that I know you need to flourish in an area of your life, but only after you do this thing for me. No, what I have seen over and over in my life is if I just consistently love someone, often they start wondering more about me and the way I live. And when I invite them to do life with me, I've just seen it over and over again. Hey, we're going to have Easter lunch. You don't have to come to service to come to Easter lunch at my house. I have seen people start at that place of show up for Easter lunch meet other people that are connected with the body, hear more about their stories, and continue to connect with us. Go play golf. Go have fun on date nights. Be around people, and that leads them to wanting to know more about us and joining this thing. Like, man, why y'all even go there? Okay, then they come see and they like, man, this is different than what I thought, and it was their own decision, never this coercion deal. And so I dislike when we do stuff like this.
Yeah, and
I'll step down.
Yeah, hey, tag me in. But no, man, my thing is, so I get some of the arguments that people are making, and I know that, for one, I'm not in support of this, but I know that some people are saying, like, man, they're offended by it. I'm not offended by it because I don't feel like it's effective. If you are one of my agnostic or atheist friends and you're like, man, they're trying to indoctrinate my kids, I'm telling you, having the 10 Commandments on the wall is not going to change the way that your kids act at all. It's probably not going to change what they believe at all. And that's my issue with this is I'm like, this isn't effective. This feels like silly virtue signaling, and it's a waste of money and time and effort. In some of our local schools here, we know that like 7% of the student body is proficient in math or language arts. Why am I going to put something else on the wall that they can't read? This is a waste of time, money, and effort when there are other issues that we should be addressing. We've been taking librarians out of cities. We've been taking music programs out of school. We already know that there's a connection between music programming and the type of functions that we need to learn languages, to learn complex skills like mathematics, helping with reading, focus and attention. We've seen links between music programming and decreased crime, getting kids involved. So we see all that type of stuff. And you're like, you know what we should spend money on? We should take these 10 Commandments, put it up on the wall. We need it in every school, and we're coming through.
We're going to print and frame this on every wall.
Yeah, on every wall. Man, I know local schools that are still trying to figure out, man, what does our school believe? Like, what is our school motto? What is our school vision? Let's put our time, energy, and attention, and I don't want to see nobody arguing with me on Facebook about this. You can show up at Eisenhower Middle School, at Ross Elementary School, help me walk with kids. I don't want to hear about this. If it gets put up in the wall, cool. If it don't get put up on the wall, great. I don't care.
But bro, we still have people that are iffy on every kid getting free lunch at school.
We melt down some of these frames.
I just
feed some kids.
It's one of those deals where, and I'm like, hey, you know what? If you help that kid read, then one day they'll be able to read scripture. If you help that kid learn how to read, then one day they'll be able to read scripture. But if you don't help them learn how to read, then we're about to go back to this society where people can't get the scriptures. And I'm gonna tell you something. If I remember right, prayer was in the schools when they were segregated and discriminating against people. It didn't stop anything then. And so I'm like, man, look, I that's why I ask people, whenever they try to say, well, if we just go back, and I say, well, how far you want to go back? Because every time you go back, I lose rights. Every time you go back, I lose rights. So how far you want to go back will tell me how many of my rights you want me to lose. And so that's one of the things I look at with this. And I'm like, when you start talking about the good old days, who are they good for? Mm-hmm. And so, like, all the things that are going on in our schools are not just a sign of because they're not teaching Bible lessons. And because there was a school I was in the area where I lived at before. I'm not going to tell you what area and what school.
That's wise. That's wise.
And
random Mexican.
The school started off with really, really good intentions, but then it was not a public school. It was a private school, and it needed to make money, and so it started relaxing its criteria for the kids that were let in, and pretty soon it became a school that pretty much anyone who kind of behavior-wise couldn't make it in to the public schools or stay in the public schools, their parents would send them there. You had some parents that were still sending them there for the original reason. was supposed to be a Christian school, but man, a lot of the kids there were more anti-gospel, anti-religious than any of my public school kids because I worked with kids in both arenas.
Yeah.
And we like, man, and they were just against it. And so it was like, man, just the presence of that doesn't change.
And I want to say this too for all, because I know there's going to be some Christian brothers and sisters who are like, how can you be mad at them putting the 10 Commandments in school? There's a phrase that I used to hear all the time, and a lot of times phrases can become antiquated as culture moves forward. But this one, I still like it still holds value. They used to say, "You may be the only Bible that someone ever reads," and I'm not big on cliches.
Yeah.
But there's some truth to that, where it's like, man, the way that you walk out and live your faith speaks a lot more to people about the truth and power of the scriptures than putting them in front of them for them to ignore or forcing them to read. And I think we need to make sure that this exists because somebody was really focused on this.
No. Okay. I'm about to tell you why this exists.
Please do.
All right. So we just had Roe versus Wade overturned. And up until the overturning of Roe versus Wade or abortion was this shiny red button that could be hit anytime an election was in danger. And that button has been lost now. And so people are looking, this is around...
The new scapegoat.
This is around an election stuff, and people are looking for a new shiny red button that can send people into panic. You know, man, one of the things I hate is being used as somebody's ploy.
Yeah.
And then people like peeing on your head and calling it acid rain. and just acting like you're oblivious to like you're a ploy in their plan. And you're like, man, I'm not falling for the okie doke, okay? Like I was born at night, but not last night. and I'm like, I'm not falling for the okie doke. I'm not going to let you use me to just be outraged all the time for your good to drive me to do what you want me to do. Like I'm not like, man, I dislike that. And more than that, we should never use the scriptures in those ways. We should never use God's name in those ways. That right there is what it means to take his name in vain. Not saying a cuss word. It's stuff like this. Because man, like if there's anything that's gonna be anti-winsome is when you try to force stuff down people's throat. He came so that we might be free.
Yeah.
And we would choose him because we saw his love for us and for all of creation. That's a good enough story. We don't have to juice the story. And so I feel like we are continually trying to juice the story because we don't want to live the story.
Yeah. Man, if Jesus gave me the option to choose him, I'm not going to take that option away from someone else. I ain't got more authority than Jesus. Man, but what do y'all think? Where do y'all sit on this? Do you agree with John? Is it a ploy? I do. But do you agree? What do y'all see? What do y'all think? How y'all think we should respond as a culture here on what we're building here in the intersection at South by East? We want to hear from you. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Just don't use it as a weapon, but use it to start up more and more conversations. And we'll see y'all next week in the intersection.